Hi there, gang. I'm Johnny W. Bread, and this is the Johnny W. Bread TV, a video tavern for what I like to think of as the thinking man. And though I will do my broadcasts primarily in the morning, and will be having my morning coffee, perhaps many of you will have yours be watching this later in the evening, and would like to sit down and have your favorite adult beverage and listen to my thoughts, my spot in my world, where I come up with hopefully provocative thoughts to get you to think and perhaps get you to think in ways you'd never thought before. It's April now, beautiful day here in sunny Rhode Island, a lot better than it was in March. And I'd like to begin by continuing a little bit from where I left off last week on the idea of extremism. Hopefully during that broadcast, I got you to think of the idea that extremism isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, if it makes sense, if you have a paradigm or an idea or a philosophy that is well thought out, yet extreme according to the cultural mores of modern society, what's wrong with that? The world was built on a lot of extreme thoughts. Like I talked about, the idea of our country was founded upon men of extreme ideas, whether it be Patrick Henry or many of the founding fathers. They were extremist. Yet, many of us consider them great. Now, today I'd like to talk from a particular point of view, and it will be extreme for sure to many of you. Many of you may dismiss it out of hand and just think I'm sort of a whack job, and that's fine. I'm just asking you to think about why you're watching this, and if you continue to watch it, if you're really going to argue the merits of what I'm saying, or you're just going to dismiss things because they're just so unusual, what I'm saying. I'm going to stop by chipping away at some ideas rather than get to the big picture. But my thing today I want to really attack is the notion of the state. And ultimately, I want to get to the idea of thinking of the state as something we don't need at all. Well, that's a crazy thought. How could you have a society without a state? Well, there are ways you could do it. There are men who've written various topics on it. Many of them are actually today in universities. One of them actually has written several bestsellers on the New York Times list. But I won't go there right yet. I just want to go there on one particular issue. After reading a lot of thoughts about Obama-nation, so to speak, and how a lot of people, particularly folks of my ilk in my political persuasion, attack Obama for this idea of creating a society that is really socialistic in some senses. I know people might say I'm throwing out bombs regarding the terminology, but it's certainly not a limited government type of view. It's a more expansive role of the federal government into the lives of Americans, and people are attacking that because they think the state has too much interest in the individual, and it's become Leviathan, so to speak, like this giant monster that's just gotten out of control. Well, looking at a particular congressman in Rhode Island's profile, as he's running for office, and I think the second congressional seat, he talks about a lot of his views, and a lot of those views are against Obama, and views that a lot of people in the conservative movement, people even in the Tea Party movement, would be in favor of, and I think he's trying to promote himself that way, as politicians do. But he also has on his website that he's in favor of the Defense of Marriage Act. And I know a lot of people say, well, that's good, society's crazy and we need to defend traditional marriage. One of the things he writes down under the heading of that is that he says the state has a vested interest in marriage because marriage are the underpinnings or create a good social fabric of society. That to me was a curious statement, and I'll tell you why. I agree that societies need marriage. Marriage is the foundation of the family. It's orderly. It's what God would want, and I think it's necessary for society to thrive and prosper and to be actually rewarded by God and blessed by God to have families. Having said that, I don't see why the state has any vested interest in that. And why do we care what the state thinks of marriage? Last I looked, marriage is legal. The state is not stopping us from getting married. So if marriage exists, particularly marriage as defined biblically, which is always going to be one man and one woman. No matter how you try to define marriage or change the definition of marriage, it doesn't really matter. Marriage is at its core a relationship between a husband and a wife where they produce offspring. That's the way it is. Now people could try to change it all they want. It doesn't make it marriage. But because people are allowed to do that, people who want to honor the institution of monogamy, faithfulness, family life, as long as people are doing that in America, even in the crazy 21st century we live in, that is going to be a stabilizing force in American life, regardless if the state is involved in it or not. Now, if others want to set up by contract other relationships where they have power of attorney or their relationship is somehow recognized, and this is done by people who are two men or two women, why do we care as a society? In a world that's in a society that's pluralistic, where people have all types of worldviews, do we want the state to come in and say, nope, can't do that? Why not? Well, because we have a vested interest in seeing that marriage, which being the social fabric of a good and right society, is kept in place. Well, marriage is in place. Husbands and wives will be getting married all the time. But we don't want to give alternative views a seat at the table. Oh, we don't? So now it's come down to the idea of placing some type of a big brother, a moral ethos ahead of the notion of liberty in America. That's why I'm an extremist. I'll tell you why I'm really an extremist. I believe more than anything liberty is the most important thing to preserve in society. And if we don't, we're going to go at a slippery slope where the government grows and grows and grows. And ultimately, I'm going to tell you the reason we need to have the state eliminated is because liberty is at great risk as long as there is a state. And I'll continue on this next time. Thank you for listening to Johnny W. Bread TV, a video tavern for the thinking man. And until next week, I'm glad you could join me. Bye for now.